Alright. Part, 13? Part 13 of my MMX 100% speedrun tutorial. In this part, we're going to cover Sigma 3, and ideally Sigma 4 or 5 times. So, this should be the final episode. Sigma 3, starting off right away, there's a trick we call the Armadillo Skip, where you skip the refight for Armored Armadillo, and it looks a little something like this. Now, the idea behind the skip is that you use the sled to zip yourself into the door without allowing the camera to pan up and lock into place for the boss fight with Armadillo. Now, what triggers the spawn of Armadillo is the camera being in position. So by bypassing that camera lock, we can bypass this fight entirely. The thing is, once we're in here, if we jump, it pans the camera up and will spawn Armored Armadillo. So, don't do that. But the idea behind this strat is that, I'm going to show you some visual cues here. For releasing the sled, it goes, I'm looking at the peak of X's head. There's like 1 pixel, if you can tell, that sticks up a little higher on the top of his helmet. That's what I'm looking at, and I'm looking at this little bolt directly above it. And there's 2 lines on either side of it. So like anywhere in between those lines is gonna work for dropping the sled. Anywhere in here. Even maybe here. Let's find out. Yeah. There's a pretty wide window. So you come in holding a charge and swap to flame to kill that guy. And you gotta be kinda quick to avoid taking a hit. Well, you gotta be pretty quick in order to get the fire on the turtle here so that it kills him before your charge is full. If you're concerned about it, you could always sort of delay your charge until you kick the wall once or something. Which just means you're gonna have to wait a little longer here, and might want to wait till that bullet goes by. But ideally, you're coming in holding your shoot button and swapping to fire wave and getting here, and you can do it before that bullet comes at you. One thing to look out for when you're doing this is that if you come up here and jump too high, even if everything else is right, the camera's already panned up pretty high. So if you do everything else right, Armadillo is still going to spawn. And you can sort of reset the camera height. If you jump too high and pan the camera, you can reset it by coming back down here, and it should still work. See? So, I get back to this trick. The sled placement is, somewhere in here. It's a pretty big window. After you place the sled, there's this red dot right next to the door. I don't know how well you can see it on stream. Hopefully well enough. You want X's front toe under it at all. Any bit of underneath this dot, and you've and the sled will zip you into the door. If you're further to the left, you'll probably just end up on top of the sled, and then the sled will push you into the door, and you'll miss the skip. So, anywhere with X's toe just under this dot, this is good. This is as far as you can go. 1 more pixel to the right, and the camera will move up and lock. And now, funny enough, that the camera's locked, we can actually walk into this pit and die. Which can be a valid strat. If you goof the skip, the fight takes long enough that this might actually be faster to suicide and then come back and do it again. Now, there are a couple other ways to set this up. If you're really concerned about your positioning, you can sort of kill these guys, get yourself lined up here underneath the dot, turn around and place the sled. If you don't think you can do it fast enough, that's a pretty reliable backup. You just gotta be careful that you don't walk too far to the right and lock the camera like I showed. And then there's one more where you sort of take a hit. It might be too far left, yeah. this one, I don't recommend this one, but some people use it. It looks like that, kind of. Now the position here is a little different. You want to get in between these two sets of brackets so that the bonk sends you far enough to the right. And I guess what I'm looking at here, I've never really done this one, it just was shown to me just before I started the tutorial. But what you're looking at is like this bolt on the ground. You want your toe sort of touching it or underneath it when you take the bonk, and that'll line you up properly to place the sled to the left like this, and it'll zip you to the door. Now, some backups. If you're like slow, maybe not that slow, but if you're kind of slow and your fire doesn't quite kill this turtle, you can still like just take the bonk off of him and get in position and drop the sled. The sled will kill him if you've done enough damage with the fire wave. Now this is obviously not ideal, but I've had to do it in certain scenarios where I kind of goofed my movement a little bit and my fire wave wasn't enough to kill this guy. And you could sort of still see these black lines behind him. So he's still alive, but I've done some damage with the fire wave. I can get in here, drop the sled, and still get the skip, even after taking a bonk. It's not a good place to be, but it's something to consider if you've goofed this and want to try to recover it. And there's also a very fast setup where you just like never stop. I don't recommend it. I mean, it's obviously the fastest way to do it, but if it's pretty risky. See, I can't even do it, like, ever. There, that should work. That one's pretty sketchy. Those are all the ideas. Now, if you just want to come in here and fight this guy, I guess that's okay. I'd recommend at least going for the skip first, but if you're going to come in here and fight him, he can block autos, right? So, you got a couple options. You can either spark his... Just quit shooting the wrong way. You can hit him with proper timing. Oh my gosh, this is terrible. With proper timing, you can hit him as he comes out of his first roll. Oh my god, I'm terrible. Nope. See, you can get him if you do it fast enough after he pops out of the roll, but the other way to do it is the easy way. It's going to be a little slower. But you just hit him with a spark to knock his armor off. This is only like a backup, right? You obviously want to skip this fight. That's nice. But now you can auto him even as he's rolling. So, a couple different options if you miss the skip. But ideally, you're gonna hit the skip, and it's gonna look glorious like this. Oh, one thing I forgot to cover. When you're doing the skip, you're on fire wave and you want to get to ice really quickly so that you can beat these bullets, right? And the way you do that is a weapon cancel. As soon as, as the fire wave is running out, you can buffer. You can actually buffer the weapon cancel. And you weapon cancel by hitting both weapon swaps at the same time. So, if you're holding both weapon swaps as your fire wave finishes the charge, it'll weapon cancel back to Buster as soon as possible. And then from Buster, it's just one swap to the left to get to ice. So, we come in with the fire wave charging. Weapon cancel, swap left, drop the sled, and then line up. and that's what it should look like. Now for this next segment, obviously don't dash in the room once you've achieved or don't jump in the room once you've achieved the skip. Otherwise, you're gonna have a bad day. You're gonna spawn him anyways. This happened in one of my PBs. It was pretty funny. There's a couple different ways to get through this segment. The easiest is obviously gonna be C-Sting, right? But that doesn't allow you to do the next big trick in this segment, which is the air auto for Sting Chameleon. So if you're not going to do the air auto, the C-Sting is going to be your best bet. But if you're going for all the fast strats, you're going to want to do air auto, which is coming up here. So we use Fire Wave, which is the only way to deal damage whilst building a charge. So we use this Fire Wave strat to have our pink shot ready while still coming through here without taking damage. And so the idea here is that you just get your Fire Wave out and you take out these two miners and get to the door. Now, there's a couple different ways. There was an old strat where you would like kill the bat for lag reduction. I don't think it helps at all, so I don't recommend it. I think I would recommend one of two ways, which is the spark strat, which is really cool. You shoot the spark as soon as the door opens, and the spark will, if you're fast, the spark will hit this miner, and then the Fire Wave will kill him very quickly, so you don't have to slow down. You still have to slow down for the second miner, because if you're going full speed, the Fire Wave's not going to kill him fast enough to get through him. Whereas with this first miner, since I've already hit him with a spark, I don't have to slow down. The other option is to just do Fire Wave, and you can start charging as early as you start dashing. I guess I should mention that too. And you can make it up here just fine. But if you're kind of slow and you want to give yourself a little breathing room, you can delay starting your charge if you want to. As long as you want to delay it, as long as you think you need. You can go as far as like not starting your charge until you kick the wall. But you gotta remember that now that you've started your charge late, you may, if you've gone faster than you expected, have to wait at the door to get your pink charge. Because you need a pink charge entering the boss door. You can be like at the very end of a yellow charge and you'll have a pink charge in time for the trick, but ideally you're gonna have your pink charge when you enter the door. So this is the strat I use. It's got a couple names that I will not mention, but in order to achieve this strat, you got to be pretty fast. So, one thing to look out for when you're going through this segment is if you jump too early as you're coming around this corner, you can actually spawn Dillo, like so. And you just have to go through this animation and then you can leave. But he'll come out here and he'll be all goofy. His sprite is all messed up. I think the miners, yeah, the miners have turned blue. You don't have to fight him, obviously, you can just leave. But you're gonna have to sit through his spawning animation, which is gonna cost time. So be a little wary of that. And that happens when you jump, like, you try to just barely clear this corner before the camera has transitioned all the way. So, in order to avoid that, you can just dash all the way to the wall. If you want to be a little risky, you can try to cut the corner a little tight, but don't go too tight, otherwise you might spawn him. So, see, even that was pretty far to the right, and I still spawned him. So your three options, I guess, three primary options anyways, are the spark strat, which I can't seem to do. Spark strat, the Fire Wave all the way, and if you're not going for air auto, you can always just use C-Sting. So, after we've successfully or unsuccessfully made our way to this boss door, we've got another big trick. You're going to notice the pattern here. Sick 3 is full of tricks. This one is called Air Hotto. Now, the way this trick works is you put a sled in the wall. I guess I'll show you what it looks like first. Let's just do it real quick. So you put a sled in the wall, and then you stand on it. You buffer your quarter circle forward. You do your quarter circle forward for your Hotto while you're standing on this sled in the wall, and then you pause because you can't weapon swap while the sled is out. But if you menu, you can swap to Buster, and once you're on Buster, you unpause, and for the very first frame after the unpause, the game thinks X is still standing on the sled, and it allows you to throw an air Hadouken if your shot input is on the first frame after unpausing. Now, there's room to buffer this input, and you can also try to mash it out. There's two different thoughts here. Mashing on the unpause and sort of buffering it on the fade in. I highly recommend the buffer, and I'll show you the timing for it, because the mashing strat is sort of hit or miss. You have to have the button pressed on the frame that you regain control. Otherwise, you're just going to shoot a lemon. So, what I do is, you'll notice that Sting has his tongue out and he reels it back in. When it's in that little curl position, shortly after that happens, that's when I'll buffer a jump so that I'm jumping on the first frame that I can, and that'll give me a dash. Now, we've talked about this before, how when you dash into a door you get this sort of auto dash, and that's what's happening here. I'm not pushing dash to get away from the wall. It's just happening because I dashed into the door to get here. So you get sort of an auto dash jump if you buffer your jump. You don't want to put your sled too low because that'll happen. You don't want to put your sled too high because you can get spiked. There's sort of a sweet spot. I mean, you can get spiked no matter what. There's some RNG involved here. Like, you notice that he does this shaky shake thing, and these spikes will drop from the ceiling. Where they come down is random, and they can come down directly on your head and block you from doing the air Hotto. Can knock you out of a Hadouken. So you can chalk that up to bad luck, but you can also minimize the chances by being fast. Right? Like, I don't really get spiked. It's super rare to get spiked anymore, just because I do it fast. So the faster you can do this, the less likely you are to get screwed by RNG. Okay, the finer points of actually doing the trick. Let's do that. What's happening here is I'm jumping away from the wall and turning around and putting the sled in. I want to do one kick and then slide down the wall to give my sled time to form. And now once I'm standing on it, I do my quarter circle forward to the right, and then I pause. And here you can take as much time as you want, but ideally, obviously, you're going to make it fast. So down, down, right gets you to the Buster in only 3 inputs. 1, 2, 3, 4 will get you there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Down, down, left works. All of these things, but you want to swap the Buster. Now, when you're unpausing here, look for as the black starts to go away. That's when you want to buffer your shot. Now, you may want to look at my my input display when I'm doing this, and notice when I hit the shoot button. That was way early. it's like as the screen is fading back in, and I press and hold the shoot button. Yeah, I guess Drago has a good point. When menuing here, right down down is obviously not going to work because you're going to end up on sub-tanks, whereas down down right does work. So just keep that in mind, I guess. Also, I guess another thing, if you had taken damage in the previous segment, now is when you want to use your sub-tank. You don't need to sub-tank before you get into the fight because you're going to be in the menu anyways. So you do the setup, you get to the part after you've done your quarter circle forward, and now you sub-tank. Then go to Buster and do your auto. But that was early. There's a good way to tell if you're pressing early or late on your buffer here. If nothing happens at all, like this, that means you press your shoot button early. If you shoot a lemon, it means you pressed late, or that your quarter circle forward was bad. If you don't do a good quarter circle forward, even if your buffer is properly timed, you're still going to shoot a lemon. Now, so the idea is as the screen is fading in from the menu, that's when you want to buffer. And there's something like an 11 frame window. It's pretty big. So once you figure it out, it becomes pretty free. Just keep in mind that if nothing comes out, you buffered early. If you shoot a lemon, you buffered late, and use that as a guideline to find the right timing. And you'll get there. It's not as hard as it might seem. One thing you want to make sure you do, though, is that you actually stand on the sled. You can do your quarter circle forward kind of early, and end up pausing before you're on the sled like this, and you're not going to get anything out of it. You have to be standing on the sled when you pause. Sick menu, bro. But you can still get it. So, Air Auto is kind of it's a trick that is not totally necessary and may seem like it saves more time than it does. Air Auto takes a little while to set up. With, placing the sled and then going to the menu and all that stuff. It takes a little time. Versus just using boomerangs in the fight, just coming in here and doing the fight as you would in, Chameleon stage. You're only saving, I think, somewhere between 7 and 9 seconds, something like that. I'm not exactly sure the numbers. You're not saving any more than 10 seconds by doing Air Auto. Now, when you miss Air Auto and have to then resort to boomerangs, that's where you're going to lose like 15 seconds or more. So, if you're not comfortable doing it, it might be worthwhile just going straight to boomerangs. But if you really want to save a decent chunk of time on a trick that is deceptively easy, I recommend going for Air Auto. Oh my god, what a menu. So, that's Air Auto in a nutshell. I don't know how else to sort of cover it. I guess I didn't cover mashing. You can try to mash out the Air Auto. Like after you menu here and swap to Buster, you can try to mash. I don't recommend it. The timing is such that, like, if you're mashing at 30 hertz, you have a 50-50 chance of missing it because you won't have the Y button pressed at the one frame it needs to be pressed. Like, you can press it early as long as it's still pressed during the 1 frame you regain control. And that's how the buffer works, right? So, by buffering it, you give yourself a pretty large window to just press and hold the button. It's highly recommended by me to buffer it. I used to have so much trouble with this trick until Demolix told me, hey, you know, you can buffer that, right? I had no idea. And once I found that out, it became much, much more consistent for me. So, if I were you, I'd buffer it. Just saying. Let's see. Anything else for air auto? I can't think. I don't think so. So this next segment is pretty free. Just swap to C-Sting and go. If you hadn't taken damage. Now, if you had taken damage, say you got spiked or you went for the boomerang fight and for some reason took some damage somehow, say you're not at full health, right? And obviously can't throw autos that way. So what you can do is you can use Spark to clear all these enemies. The downfall to using Spark is you may run into an ammo drop, but what you're using Spark for is to clear these enemies in hopes of getting a health drop from one of the lower two. If not, you can then swap right once to boomerangs and use the boomerang to collect this health. Now what I'm looking at when I'm trying to hit this is where these two pipes come together above X's head. I want to be sort of centered on those so that it goes around the ammo and grabs the health. And you could also grab it from way over here as well. But this is sort of an emergencies only type thing, right? You can quickly refill your health like that. If you're lucky, you won't even have to boomerang. These guys will drop health for you, ideally. But ideally, you didn't take any damage, and you just come through here with C-Sting, and you're at the Spark Mandrill fight. Now, the Spark Mandrill fight has a couple different options. You can do the safe route, where you just shoot ice at the wall, knock him down, and then throw a auto at him. And the ice will hit him the majority of the time. Like, all of his patterns should get hit by this ice shot. And then you just auto him. This is the easy strat and is recommended for most people. It's going to hit all of his patterns. Now, there's a slightly faster strat called the YOLO Mandrill, where instead of ice, you just shoot. Why am I on C-Sting? You just shoot a auto right away and hope he punches at you. That's why we call it YOLO. Ideally, he'll punch at you. He's got 4 patterns he can do. He can jump over you, in which case you dash under and auto to the left, and that's pretty similar, I think, to using ice. This is the worst pattern where he jumps straight up. You're going to have to bait him back down and then auto him. This one's pretty easy, and then there's a spark. He can punch the ground and do his spark attack, which can be a little dangerous. You've got like a 5-frame window to dodge his spark like that. And the key to dodging the spark is to just wait till it's really close. I don't know how better to describe it. You just want to wait till he's really close, hold left and press jump. You're going to give yourself a better chance at dodging that spark by buffering the shot. So, again, I'm doing the quarter circle forward when his health is full, and then I'm looking at X, and X will blink right there, and that's when I press shoot. And that'll give you the buffered auto. The auto will come out on the first frame, so you'll obviously get the fastest possible kill if he punches or if he sparks, and it'll give you the widest window to dodge the spark. the Hotto. Maybe not recommended unless you're really looking for some minor time saves. It's very, very, very safe to just do ice. And doesn't cost you hardly any time. Versus the YOLO strat. So, probably best to just do, if you're watching a tutorial, you're probably better off just doing ice. But if you really want to go for the fastest stuff, this YOLO strat is available. And I figured I'd better cover it. So, that's Spark Mandrill. Next we have what we call the Fish Manip. So what you want to do is you want to get against this door before it explodes, obviously. You want to swap to Sparks and have a full charge ready. Now, in order to achieve the Fish Manip, what you got to do is, when you're coming out here, you want to go pretty close to this right wall. And you'll notice that that fish is facing to the right. Now, if I come down to the left, he's facing left. And that's not what you want, because now he's going to suck you into this wall. And it's not going to be very fast. Ideally, you come down, he's facing to the right, and then you release your spark sort of right behind him, and it'll take out 3 fish. And you'll get an added speed bonus from this second fish sucking you towards it. And the spark will take out all 3 of them. And then you just dash off the edge and jump over the last fish. Now, if for some reason you didn't get the 3rd kill, say you released your spark a little early or something, Tornado is only 1 swap to the left from the sparks, so it's pretty easy to swap there and take out the 3rd fish that way. But ideally, you release your spark sort of in his booty there, and it takes out all 3, and then you jump over the last fish. Notice I'm not jumping off this ledge. I'm dashing off all of these, and this one in particular to give myself space to jump over this last fish. If you need it, if for some reason you're taking damage in here, there's health up there, which can be kind of a pain to get because now those fishes will be like respawning and stuff. There's a kind of a swaggy. I've used it before. If I'm taking damage, say I missed the spark dodge or something, you can do like a boomerang grab. That's pretty neat. Maybe not faster than just sub-tanking. How did I used to? I haven't had to do this in a while. Ugh. See, that can happen. If you release your spark just a little too early, it won't take out the last fish, so you gotta be mindful of that. How did I used to do this? Maybe it was a downward boomerangs travel further, so maybe that's what it was. That's probably what it was. So, that's another short segment. Sigma 3 is kind of a funny stage that way. It's just like a bunch of short segments broken up by boss fights. So, ideally you're doing this Fish Manip, which again is done by just make sure you go close to the wall. You obviously don't want to touch it because that's just going to slow you down. But if you want to be extra certain that you get it, I guess you could. But you just want to get close to the wall to make sure that this fish is facing to the right, this very first fish. But if you come down to the left, you got problems. So, Fish Manip. And then now we've got the Octo fight. The Octo Hotto is really easy. You just have to be a little patient. To start the fight with Buster, you shoot 1 lemon. He's always going to shoot missiles first, right? So you just shoot a lemon to take out the low one. The other ones will miss you. And he's got 3 patterns. He's got 3 different jump heights is what he's got. He can do a high, he can do a high, he can do a mid, he can do a mid, he can do another mid, or another mid, or low. So you just shoot one and then you throw the auto. You just got to be sort of patient because you can't miss if he goes high. If he goes with a high jump, you can throw your auto underneath him. If he does a low jump, you can't miss. If he does a mid jump, you can. So just make sure you gauge what kind of jump he's doing before you throw your auto. And adjust accordingly. It's very simple. Shoot a lemon, throw auto. Just be aware of the height of his jump. Oops. Okay, next segment, pretty free. Start charging as soon as the fight ends. Swap to C-Sting. Get close to the door. And you just wanna get up here as quick as possible. Release your C-Sting here. And for this segment, it can get really, really laggy. So what you want to do is you want to do these sort of these dash jumps without actually dashing. You want to dash and jump together. You don't want to dash on the ground because they cause dust sprites, not underwater, but up here it will cause dust sprites, which is going to add to the lag. So in order to avoid that, we do these jumps instead of dashing on the ground. Now, I guess the secret, maybe not the secret, but you're gonna get some dust sprites. The dust sprites are on a global timer, so like even if you press dash and jump on the same exact frame, there's a 1 in 4 chance that you're gonna get a dust sprite. So you just kind of gotta hope for no dust sprites, but at any rate you want to minimize the number of dust sprites that you're generating by doing immediate jumps. And ideally, you only have to do, I don't know how many that was, but that's what it looks like properly. You want to come pretty close to hitting that guy, and then one jump on the high spot, one in between the laser guys, and then one more to get to the door. Flame Mammoth, another very easy Hotto. Walk to the right, Hotto to the left. Super simple. He's always going to jump at you. Walk to the right, Hotto left. I've seen people do like a dash jump to the right and then Hotto right, which either is fine. They're the same speed because the conveyor is going to carry you all the way to the door by the end of the explosion anyways. But it's super easy to just walk right and then Hotto left. You got a huge window, all the time in the world. It's super free. So, very easy. Okay, coming up, one final trick in Sigma 3 is the Dom Dukin, or the Brick 1 Bar Dukin, or the D-Rex Hadouken. It looks a little something like that, and it's not as hard as it looks. Now, the key to doing... Hey, Mr. Cab. Brick 1 Bar Dom Dukin. Brick Bar 1 Dom Dukin. The trick of many names. No, that's Magic Carpet. So the idea behind this auto, I guess let's cover it. You want to get directly against the base of D-Rex, and then you want to jump straight up and shoot when you land. In order to achieve that, one full-length dash is not enough to get you against the base. So, what I do to achieve this is I'm holding down at the start of this fight. I'm holding down. And I buffer my dash when his health is full. And then as I near the end of my dash, I do my quarter circle forward so that the forward input of my quarter circle forward covers that last little bit of distance to get me all the way against the base. Now make sure you let go of right before you jump, otherwise you are going to crash into him. And you want to just jump straight up and you'll land on the platform. And then it's simply shooting after you land. Now, a lot of mistakes have been made where you shoot early like that before you land, and now you're not going to get the Hadouken. And even if you do, he's on iframes because your lemon hits him first. You want to make absolute certain that you've landed before you press shoot. And you've got something like a 20 frame window between your final input of your quarter circle forward and pressing shoot to still get a auto. So, holding down buffer to dash and my quarter circle forward at the end of the dash to cover the very last bit of distance. Then jump straight up and shoot as soon as you land. You don't want to jump too high because that might eat up a lot of your time. Ideally, you do just kind of a medium height jump to get just enough height to land on the base. And with some practice, this becomes a pretty free strategy. Now, some backups. Say you miss it, or you just don't want to go for it. All you gotta do, jump on the base, and he's got two patterns. He can come over and try to chomp you, in which case you have to have pretty good timing to avoid death. Or not death, but taking damage. Or he can come down at an angle. You see, you can get him as he's chomping you, which is a little difficult. The timing is pretty tight. Or you can come down at the angle, which is very, very easy. Pretty simple, really. Like, if you're going for the angle, you can even try to get to the right to be in the center of the stage. Towards the center-ish, because obviously X is going to have to walk. And one more option, I guess, is to come in here with a charge, which I didn't do, so I won't be able to showcase this, but you can, if you're afraid that, if you don't think that you can do Domduken, and you don't think that you can get the Chomp Auto and you want to eliminate RNG, you can Air Auto D-Rag. I don't recommend it because it's pretty slow, right? I mean, obviously you would come into the fight with a charge, so you wouldn't have to waste this much time. You just go straight into it, but you still have to menu, which is going to cost you time. So, ideally, you're going to get this Domduken. But if you really want to try to mitigate the chances of getting chomped, and you're not confident in your Domduken, you can go for an Air Auto. And the Air Auto works exactly the same as it would in Stink Chameleon. So, that's Sigma 3. We're going to dive right in to Sigma 4 because this is the end, and Sigma 4 is very short. I'm going to wrap this tutorial up. Sigma 4, nice long climbing section. We've covered it before, but ideally your kicks are about 20-21 frames apart to get yourself up here as quick as possible. As far as the dog goes, the dog is the first part of this. You see this? You see this dot in the center above X's head? That's what I'm looking at for when to start my charge. And the goal is to have a yellow charge coming in. Obviously hold start to pass the text quickly. The goal is to have a yellow charge coming into the dogfight. And I just start charging as soon as I can see that dot in the background, the one in the center now. As soon as you can see it on your climb, that's when I start charging, and you should have a yellow charge by the time you get up here. And this is the faster strategy. It looks like that. All you gotta do is just let go. the charge shot will hit him right away, and then as soon as it, actually before it even fires, the dog's health bar is kind of funny in that you can actually buffer inputs when it's like 3 health from being full, so it's a pretty wide window. So what I do is I buffer my dash when his health is nearly full, but I've released Y so that the shot comes out immediately. And then I just dash over here and throw auto. He's got very short iframes, so the dog is pretty free. The other option for the dog, which is even freer, but slightly slower, is to just let him go to the wall and auto him after he bounces off the wall. In this case, you wouldn't need to come in with a charge, but you can just do the negative edge if you want to. Pretty free doggy auto. So, those are your 2 options for the dog. Also, if you end up in a bind, the dog's weakness is ice. And I should have mentioned previously, D-Rex's weakness is boomerangs. If you find yourself without full health and no tanks against D-Rex, you can do boomerangs. I'm not going to cover a boomerang or a ice dogfight, either one. For Jedi Hado is very easy as well. It's another buffered Hado. So, similar to the Kwanger Hado in Sigma 1, what we're going to do is we're going to buffer. When his health is full, we're going to do a nice kind of slow, deliberate quarter circle forward. And then what I do is I just mash shoot. I don't know a good cue to buffer the shot, but you can just press the buffer. But I'll just mash shoot because this one is less, it's more lenient to mash than say Air Hado, where you need to hit it on the very first frame you gain control. Here you don't. You just lose that number of frames, I guess, which is not a huge deal. So again, quarter circle forward, slow and deliberate. When his health is full, mash shoot. That's how I do it. So let's take a look. Very easy. If for some reason you shoot a lemon, you can go to the wall and sort of bait him up and then get him on the way back down. That's your backup here. Bait him up, get him when he's coming down. But you shouldn't miss this. This is a very free auto. And I guess if you miss, if for some reason you have to fight him, sparks are the way. It looks something like this. I'm really bad at it. Watch an any percent run if you want to see what the spark fight looks like. But yeah, that's Jedi. It's very free auto. You shouldn't miss it. And the very final fight, the end. The end is near. You may be asking, if you've seen runs of this before, you may be asking, why don't they auto Final Sigma? And I'll show you why. It doesn't work. It just tanks off his face. So, what we're gonna do, he can only be damaged by 2 things. Full charge pink shots will deal 1 damage, and rolling shield does 2. So, we're gonna use rolling shield. It's gonna be 16 rolling shots, and the game is over. Now, these claws can be a little trolly, but ideally you're going to get up on this wall right away. He can stop and block you, but a lot of times he's just going to let you through. Now, yeah, I'm gonna put it in the collections. Let's see. There's a safe spot on this claw. I'm standing in it. The lightning is not going to hit me here. And it could be even a little further to the left, I think. Maybe even another pixel. like this might even be safe. Let's see. Unless this claw keeps getting in the way. Yeah, see, even way over here is safe from the lightning. So, you're safe here. And you can just sort of jump up and down, shooting these rolling shields at him. You just gotta watch out for this right claw coming across and getting in your way, and the left claw's lightning. But if you're standing in the right spot, you should never get hit by the lightning. Ideally, you don't ever fall down. I'm clearly very bad at this fight, but this is kind of what it's supposed to look like, I guess. I mean, we'll see how it turns out. Nope, this is not what it's supposed to look like. Don't fall off the claw. One thing you can also do is, if you're not comfortable in your positioning, you can just use this wall. The problem with using the wall is that these claws come 2x when they make their moves. So if you're way up in the corner here, you might get totally blocked out from even hitting him. If a claw comes over to get you. Now, another thing that you should keep in mind is after a claw moves out of its sort of normal rotation, notice how it kind of just, after it does one of these moves, it's always going to do lightning right away as soon as it gets back into position. So, like, it moved now, it comes back, lightning every time. So just be aware of that and make sure you're standing in your safe space to avoid getting hit with the lightning. Or you're against the wall or something. You can't always avoid lightning by being on the wall, but a lot of lightning can be avoided by going to the wall. But ideally, you're going to stay on the right edge of the left claw and just keep pumping these rolling shields into Velgarder Sigma here. And you finish him off pretty quickly that way. Claws can be pretty trolly. If you start taking a bunch of damage, like this lightning does 12 damage to unarmored X, so it does 6 damage to armored X, which is going to take you out very quickly if you're not being mindful of your health. So obviously you want to avoid damage. One, because you get slowed down by taking damage. Two, there's a very real chance that you can die in this fight. Even with armor and max health and everything, there's still a chance. So, the best place to be is on the right side of this claw. The other best place to be is going to be against the wall. And you can sort of do this if you want to. There's a bunch of ways to go about doing this fight, but ideally you're just going to stand on the right side of this claw and just pump these shots right into his face. And just like everybody else, Velgarder Sigma has 60 iframes, which is 1 second. So 1 second in between hits, and you should take him down. And a little over 16 seconds, 16 shots. So, all in all, it's not that difficult of a fight. It can be kind of difficult to do fast if the claws are not cooperative. Like, if this left claw blocks you from getting up right away. If this right claw comes over and does stuff like that. There's a lot of RNG involved, but most of it is just minor time loss. Like that's kind of annoying, but you can get up on the claw from the right side if it blocks you like that. There is a chance, like if you're standing on the very right edge of this claw, like way out there, oh, my controller, if you're standing on the very, very right edge of the claw, you can actually jump straight up and not land back on the claw, even if it's not moving. because X's hitbox kind of changes. See, like that one, it wasn't moving, and yet I still didn't land on the claw. So when you're standing on the right side, maybe not stand all the way to the right. You know, leave yourself a little bit of room. But if the claw is in a favorable part of its cycle, you don't really have to worry about it, right? Because it'll circle back underneath you. It can also circle away from you as you're jumping up to hit him. So, just, you know, practice makes perfect, just like anything else in this game. This fight can take some getting used to, but with the proper tools, which I hopefully have given you, it shouldn't take too long to get fairly decent at. So, hopefully you guys have enjoyed this tutorial. I know it's been very, very long-winded, and at times a little scatterbrained, but it was kind of a spur-of-the-moment thing that turned into a bit more ambitious project than I expected. So, hopefully I was able to put out some information that maybe you guys weren't able to find elsewhere, and you'll be able to find the rest of the tutorial under the collections tab on my Twitch page, as well as I think I'll probably likely export this to YouTube at some point. So if you're watching this on YouTube in the future, hello from the past, and thanks for watching. And don't forget to check me out over at twitch.tv/walrusprime, where I do speedruns way too often. So, again, if I had missed anything throughout this entire tutorial, feel free to message me on Discord or Twitter at walrus_prime. Comments, I guess, on a YouTube video if it's eventually up there. Twitch messages, Twitch whispers, whatever. Get a hold of me if you have any questions. I'll be glad to help. Come to my channel, watch, ask questions in my chat is more than welcome. And hopefully, like I said, you guys have learned a thing or two watching this. I've learned a thing or two doing it, so. But I am kind of glad it's over. TBH. So, again, that's all. That's all from me. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys around. Peace!